Good morning, everyone, and welcome to SUNUP. I'm Lyndall Stout. From the bitter cold to hello springtime. Over the course of 1 week, some areas of Oklahoma have literally seen a 100-degree shift in temperatures. Of course, the conditions are always ideal here in the greenhouse, especially for growing wheat. But for a check on what's going on out in the field, we spoke with Jeff Edwards, our small grains extension specialist. What did you discover when it came to the extreme cold we've seen?
Well, there's certainly some injury on the plants. These plants are from the Altus area, and we have two different fields planted at two different dates. This is some later sown wheat. It was sown late, but it did get well established before winter. So it has 3-4 good tillers on it. And when you look out across the field, you would see these brown leaves just really standing out to you, and you would think there's something wrong with this field, and there is some tissue damage. But in this particular case, if you split open some of these stems and look at the new growth down low in the canopy, it's still healthy. It's not brown. It's a nice light green color, which is what we would expect. And these plants are still very much viable plants, and I look for wheat like this to make a full recovery. Where we could run into some issues would be on early sown wheat like this that has been grazed. And the reason we can run into issues there is that instead of having all this forage mass on top of the plant to protect it, the cattle have grazed all of this off, and we're left with a plant something like that. And the crown of the plant, the growing point on large wheat like this that was sown early, is pushing up through the soil surface and is somewhat exposed to the cold temperatures. Now, generally, winter kill on grazed wheat is worse than non-grazed wheat just in an average year. But you take a year like this where we had the extreme temperatures without snow cover, I look for us to have quite a bit of winter kill and winter injury in our grazed wheat. Similarly, I think wheat that was very small going into this cold snap, that only had 2 to 3 leaves on it, and just came out of the ground, I think we could see some winter kill there. But in wheat that was well established and was in good shape going into the cold snap, I look for most of that to make it through the extreme temperatures and come back and make a full recovery. And
especially with these really warmer temperatures on the backside of that, right?
Right, and fortunately we have forecasted temperatures in the 60s and 70s. That will help. If we could get a little bit of help from Mother Nature and get a nice drink of water on some of this wheat in southwest Oklahoma and western Oklahoma where we didn't get the benefit of the snowfall, that would certainly help things out as much as anything else would.
How do you know you're in trouble? Do you need to give it a week or two to kind of see if it's going to bounce back?
You do. You need to give it at least 5 to 7 days before you make any type of a judgment call on the wheat on whether or not it survived the cold snap. You need to give it an opportunity to regrow and reproduce that green leaf area. Normally 7-10 days is a good window where you can effectively make a call on that wheat and decide whether or not you need to make alternative plans for that ground.
Okay, and late February is the time to talk about first hollow stem?
It is, especially with temperatures in the 60s and 70s, we will be at first hollow stem before we know it.
Well, let's walk over to the field and kind of give us an example of what you want to talk about.
Okay.
You say this wheat here was sown in early September?
It was sown in early September. We sow most of the varieties that would be planted in the state here at Stillwater in early September, and we check for first hollow stem in these plots and report those numbers via the internet over the next 3 to 4 weeks.
Okay, let's take a look here in the ground.
What the producers are going to want to look for when checking for first hollow stem, we're looking for that growing point gradually moving above the soil surface. So there are a few things you need to keep in mind. First of all, you need to check for first hollow stem often, because when we get in the 60s and 70s, that growing point moves up above the soil surface very quickly. So you need to check frequently. You need to check in the same variety, same planting date. If a varieties differ as much as 2, maybe even 3 weeks in when they reach first hollow stem. So same variety, same planting date. And most importantly, you need to check in an ungrazed area, because if the wheat has been grazed off, it's going to delay how quickly that growing point moves upward. So all of the information we have is based on checking first hollow stem in an ungrazed area. And normally you can find a little bit of ungrazed wheat, maybe just outside of the hot wire or something like that. So you're going to walk into the field, find some large wheat like this that has not been grazed, and it helps to carry a garden trowel with you. Pull up some wheat, knock some of the soil off, and then having a nice sharp knife or a box cutter also helps. You're going to cut that wheat off just below the soil surface, because whenever we're checking for first hollow stem, that growing point is still right at the soil surface or sometimes just below the soil surface. Split that stem open longitudinally, and you're going to look for the growing point. And in this case, that growing point has just started to differentiate, and we really don't have hollow stem present. What we need to look for is about 1.5 centimeters of hollow stem present at the base of this plant. And that's about the same as the diameter of a dime. And whenever you have hollow stem that's close to the diameter of a dime, it's time to get those cattle off of the wheat pasture.
Okay, and of course there can be further damage if you wait too long? Absolutely.
The economics just don't work out. The cattle need to come off of wheat pasture by first hollow stem, because the wheat grain yield will suffer if you graze past first hollow stem. In a dry year like this, it's going to suffer quite a bit.
Okay, Jeff Edwards, good information. Thank you.